So Vito, you got to sit down with the guys from Barebottle. What'd you guys go over?
Yeah, so they gave us a recipe and we turned it into a kit. It's called Torcido and it's a Mexican lager. It's just a really crushable beer. It's like a beery beer, just nice and refreshing.
Sounds awesome. Well, let's watch the clip.
Yeah.
So it's funny because when researching to make this beer in particular, I actually bought as many lager books as I could. And the Mexican lager section is always about a paragraph that gets summed down to Mexican lagers exist. So the idea for Torcido as a beer in general came from us having just started our lager program, and we were making a bunch of beautiful pilsners and German pilsners, Munich pilsners, just like bitter, crisp, super flavorful, hoppy beers. And while they were really good, sometimes at the end of the day after a long shift, you kind of just want something that you don't even have to think about.
Yeah, so you won a GABF medal with that. What was that like?
It was super incredible, just awesome. Not because it was just this beer in general, but it's, you know, I've been to GABF so many times, and to be able to win an award there, it's just really validating that we're doing something cool here at the brewery.
So we got the secret recipe for this kit and we're gonna be giving it away this week.
Well, it's not necessarily secret. One of the cool things about Barebottle is they actually put the recipe on all of their cans.
Okay, well then we packaged up the secret recipe and we're giving it away this week. So to win, go to morebeer.com/freebeerfriday and enter the weekly giveaway. Speaking of lagers, Vito, what's your favorite?
Let's see, if I was gonna go in the continental United States, I'm gonna go with Bierstadt. Anytime I go to Denver, that's like my stop. I just go there and get a slow pour Pils. It's just amazing. I say, if you're in Denver, go get it.
So good. Yeah, I typically would have always been about Europe, any of them. But in reality, I'm starting to love what we have here in the United States. And for me, it's Wayfinder up in Portland and their CZAF. Bohemian Pilsner is awesome. They have a triple decoction system and it's unlike anything I've had here in the States.
Yeah, check them out, they're delicious.
Well, we'd like to hear from you. What is your favorite lager? Put it down in the comments. We'd love to hear about it. All right, Vito. So we got to do a lager kit. Let's go over basic lagering.
Well, the biggest, obviously, temp control. You need to be able to control the temperature of your fermentation.
Temp control, I think, is everything in a lager, and it's not only the fermentation, but I think the brewing process too, especially if you're doing all grain. Temperatures matter because this is not a beer that you're gonna hide behind hops. You're gonna be malt forward. So the next thing I think is important is yeast.
Yeah, yeast, the variety, like what different lager yeast put off different esters and phenols and sulfur and things like that. So picking that, but then also the quantity of yeast. So old rule of thumb, 3 to 4 times the amount of yeast you'd pitch for an ale, pitch for a lager.
Exactly. I was often too lazy to do starters and I would pitch 4 things of White Labs or whatnot to make up for that.
Yeah, the next thing I would say recommend is a full boil. Make sure you're doing the full boil volume and then also getting a nice vigorous boil as well.
Absolutely, and use a clarifier. Again, this isn't a hazy, this isn't something you're hiding behind. This is, lagers are traditionally very crisp and clear.
Yeah, we're talking like classic lagers, not these West Coast lagers and things like that. So yeah, you want it to be crystal clear. I should be able to read through it.
Awesome. Well, after we do a full boil, we got to have a wort chiller because we need to chill that fast.
Yeah, the DMS, we want to make sure we're chilling it fast so we do not create any DMS.
We got to avoid that. And then I think the last thing is strategy.
A fermentation strategy, yeah. There's definitely a couple ways to go about it. You want to start cold, and then you definitely want to do a diacetyl rest, so let it raise at the end there. And different methods and different ramping ways, but having a strategy to that fermentation is important for a lager.
Yeah, and finally, patience. These things do not happen quickly. You don't have a turnaround great lager in 2 weeks.
Yeah, definitely. Patience is a virtue. 21 days, probably minimum. I think we'll talk about some other ways that they could speed that up a little later.
We got a few tips.
Yeah.
And the last thing, I've said that 3 times now, is ingredients.
Yeah, using the malt hops. I think, again, we're talking classic. So noble hops, you want that, kind of spicy, earthy from the noble hops. And then a good Pilsner malt, like a Viking Pilsner. It's, like we said, it's a clean beer, nothing to hide behind. So you don't want too much malt in there.
Awesome. Well, thanks for going over those, but let's go over some simple tricks on making a great lager for those who aren't set up to do it in the traditional way. All right, well, the first trick is really just a strategy, and that comes from our friend Tasty, Mike McDowell. He had this awesome way of doing lagers and gave presentations all around for it. Can you go over kind of what made his different?
Yeah, it was Tasty's quick lagering method. Basically, it was 4 steps, and I don't remember the exact amount, but when you're 20% through fermentation, you're going to bump it up 2 to 3 degrees. 40% through fermentation, bump it up another couple degrees. So you're basically doing a step ferment, so warming it up over time.
Well, you don't have to memorize all that because we have his PDF of his presentation. Check out the link below to download the PDF. I've used it, you've used it, we've made great beer with it. All right, the second trick is really for people without good temp control of fermentation, and that's to do the fermentation under pressure, which blew me away that this was even a thing.
Yeah, fermenting under pressure is going to do a couple things. It's going to suppress the esters, big tanks that they're doing. Every foot of liquid is actually 1 to 2 psi of pressure. So, like in big commercial breweries, they're actually getting these cleaner fermentations by fermenting under pressure.
The water column of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, you really don't need a ton. You need a vessel that you can ferment under pressure.
Yep.
And the Fermzilla is a very inexpensive one, and a spunding valve.
Yeah, so you can mimic that pressure by having actual head pressure on there, putting 10 to, I think it's around 8 psi is what you want to start with, 12 psi max. Depends on the yeast strain. So different yeast strains ferment better under different pressure.
And we're using a lager strain when doing this. We're not using an ale and faking it.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Yeah, so the keys to doing that is you need a vessel to go under pressure. A keg works well for that too, and a spunding valve that you can control the PSI in the keg during fermentation. And the last tip is using Kviek yeast and actually fermenting hot.
Yeah, so the Kviek strain, and specifically the Lutra strain, so there's the Hordinol and some of these other ones, but the Lutra strain is a very clean strain, even at these super high temperatures. So it's not going to produce esters, and it's pretty clean, lager-esque almost.
Well, let's rank them in order. If I'm going to brew one, I'm going to do the temp control and do it the traditional way. I think for the next best flavor, I would then go into the pressure.
Under pressure, totally agree.
Yeah,
Yep.
And then the Lutra Kviek strain makes great beer. Is it going to be a perfectly a lager? Questionable, and I'm going to test that out soon.
Yeah.
Well, don't forget to enter our Cannular giveaway for the month of April. Head to morebeer.com/freebeerfriday and enter that monthly giveaway. Thanks for watching. See you next Friday. Cheers.